Welcome back to my channel. I'm Vicky and I love all things fragrance, body care, beauty, and I love a good haul. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, hit that subscribe button and notification bell to miss any of my uploads. Okay, so this is new for my channel, but we're gonna just roll with me here. I am going to talk about the books I read over 2024. Now, a few disclaimers. I was unfortunately not an avid reader before then. Like, I would read things haphazardly, but nothing to where I be like a bookworm or anything. But one thing, I walked into 2024 telling myself I wanted to be more intentional with reading more. So yeah, that's what I set out to do. I set a goal because, again, getting my feet wet all over again. So I was like, 10 books, that's my goal. I read 20, so I'm very proud of that. I know there's people that read 50, 70, 100 books. Okay, look, more power to them. I am doing what I can with the time I have. So I say all that to say, if you were interested in the books I read over 2024, then just keep on watching. And if you are new to my channel, because this is a different type of content for me, I typically talk about fragrances, but okay, I am not a one-trick pony. No one's a one-trick pony. So let me say that as well, because I don't want that to be perceived the wrong way. Let's get into the books. So I'm not going to really go in the order I read them because I have some authors that I read multiple books from. So first I'll talk about The Color Purple. So I'm looking at my Goodreads list so that I don't forget any of the books. But I read The Color Purple by Alice Walker. And it was actually my first time reading the book all the way through. I feel like I did try to read this book a few years ago and I just couldn't really get into it, so I didn't finish it then. But I feel like I bought this book back in 2023. Honestly, I feel like I bought a few books then. That doesn't matter. I struggled a little bit getting through the book, but it wasn't a bad book. What I will say though, okay, since I've seen the movie, I didn't see the remake, but when I was reading the book, I am like, I don't recall this happening in the movie. I kept saying that's not how it happened, but the movie is based loosely on the book. I kept having to remind myself that this is where the movie came from, but it's not like one for one. But it was a whole lot of, that ain't how it happened. That is not how it happened, okay? I don't want to give any spoilers or anything, so I won't do that, but that's just what I would say. I was like, that's not how I recall the movie going. But it was interesting kind of seeing more of Celie coming into her own a little bit, that you get a little bit in the movie, but you don't get it as well as you would in the book. That's what I'll say. Because I also didn't, okay, this isn't too much it was for, but I didn't know that she had moved like away at some point. So I was like, okay, yeah. And also in the book, they get a little more into Nettie's journey in Africa that isn't in the movie. They show like a couple of scenes, but it's not as in depth as it was in the book. And yeah, it wasn't a bad book, okay? Let me say that. It's a great story. It's just, I'm not sure if Alice Walker's writing is my jam or not. Maybe I should try and see if Alice Walker has other books to see if those would keep me reeled in. I have a short attention span, so that's one of my struggles with reading. It's like, if you don't have me hooked in, it's going to be hard for me to get through the book. So it was a little bit of a slow read for me, but I got through it, and it's an amazing story. You already know this if you've seen the movie. So it's an amazing story. So that's why I was like, I do want to see this through. So yeah, good book. Struggle for me to read a little, but we got through it. And I would recommend it simply because if you've seen the movie, I feel like you might enjoy the book. You might not. But yeah. Okay, next I'm going to talk about Curvy Girl Summer Danielle Allen. So what is that girl's name again? Let me see if I can find her name. Aaliyah. It's basically a summer with Aaliyah and some dating fails. And I did like the book. Sometimes Aaliyah just knew how to get on my nerves a little bit. Just a little bit. Maybe it's not that she's getting on my nerves. Maybe as a reader, things will feel obvious to you. You're like, oh my gosh, how can you not see that? But as the character, even in real life, you might not see things the way that others see them, the way they pick up on them. But great ending. We love a happy ending. So I probably just ruined it a little bit for you if you've never read it, but we love a nice ending. So yeah, it was good enough for me. I could get with it. There were a couple of spicy scenes. I'm like, okay. But again, I love that they have, she's a successful Black woman. So we love a good story about that. And yeah, I would definitely recommend that book to someone who hasn't read it before. It's a nice little read, but she might annoy you as the reader because you're on the outside looking in, right? So you're like, girl, what is you doing? Okay, next. The next 3 books are going to be books I read through this book club I joined at work. So first one here is First Lie Wins by Ashley Elston. Now, this let me know that I'm into a good thriller. I'm into a good plot thickens kind of thing, because before, I would read more urban fiction. Even in high school, reading all the books we probably shouldn't have been reading, but we were reading, The Coldest Winter Ever, Fly Girl, the True to the Game series, Wahida Clark, Zane. Okay. First Lie Wins, nothing like those. So I think it was on Reese Witherspoon's book list, her book club or whatever. And it just seemed interesting. And one thing I was picking up on, there are some double lives happening here. Okay. And I found that to be it was like, oh my God, what is happening? I think initially it was kind of interesting, but still a slow start, but that didn't last too long, which I can appreciate. So it was just like, wait, what's about to happen? I need to see this through. So that's I don't know if thriller is the right word for it. Let's see. Do you have some descriptive? Goodreads have descriptive words for this. I guess it's a thriller, but it's got some twists and turns in there. And you're just when you think you know what's about to happen, you don't. You have no idea. I'm like, ooh. Whoa. Amazing book. 10 out of 10. Highly recommend that one. It's an amazing read. So if you love a good something to pull the rug from underneath you just when you think you know, just when you think you got it all figured out, definitely recommend that one. Now, I will say though, there might be some gaps for some people, and I feel like that's to be expected with a thriller. They might not connect all the dots for you. I do wonder like, because it kind of sets the stage for a part two, which I heard there won't be a part two, but it kind of sets the stage, like, is there going to be some get back? Is there going to be some get back? Like, there were some things that weren't confirmed in the book that makes you think it would be a great sequel, but yeah, we don't know. So, great read though. The next one is The Quiet Tenant by Clemence Miquelon or Miquelon. Don't know how to pronounce that. Again, double lives. Now, I want to be sensitive about suggesting that book specifically because there is some sensitive content in there in regards to SA and abuse and all of that. So that one, read at your own risk. I'm not going to say run out and grab it because of some of the sensitive material, which honestly, it's not graphic, but it says just enough for you to know what's going on. And sometimes while reading the book, I'm forgetting the main situation at hand. But it's still, I found it to be a really good book. I feel like if we knew ahead of time that it would have that sensitive undertone to it, we probably would not have read it, especially with it being a work book club. But yeah, read at your own risk. I did think it was a good book, but I do want to preface there is sensitive material in there as far as subject matter, so keep that in mind. And then the last book we read for book club is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. This one, way left field for me as far as the content. It's more sciencey, and it's overall the ending. It's like a good story in theory. It's just, it was a struggle for me to get through. I feel like I don't mind a book being 400 plus pages as long as you keep me interested, as long as you keep my attention. So that was part of the struggle, and I don't think everyone in the book club, I think only 2, maybe 3 of us actually finished the book. It's a slow burn. I'm not gonna hold you, it's a slow burn. Great story about saving the world, the planet, like the solar system, I guess, but well, not really the solar system, the planet. It's a great literal Project Hail Mary situation going on, and some of the verbiage was very science intense, and things that, like, if you don't speak science words, you will have a hard time visualizing this in your head when you're talking about objects and items and materials. So it's hard to keep you interested. So that's unfortunate. But the one thing about the book is, just as you think it's winding down, you're like, I see where this is going. It kind of takes a twist towards the end. And it doesn't really end how I imagined it would. But it was still a good ending. And boring is such a mean word, but a bunch of it is kind of boring. But there are some laugh out loud moments. There are some interesting parts, like especially when Grace understands how he ended up on this vessel in the first place, when it all comes back to him. I'm like, oh. Wow. But it's a great story between him and Rocky, and it's very interesting to see how 2 different beings, because not, I guess to give a little bit away, Rocky is not human. Rocky is from another solar system, or another planet or whatever. But to see how 2 beings can come together and not have any prejudice, any judgment, any assumptions, and they're able to work together for a greater good. So it's overall a good story. It's just a hard read because it can feel boring, like it's dragging out and all the science stuff in there. Now, I did see there's supposed to be a movie in the works for this. While it's probably not something that would have immediately captured my attention, but after reading the book, I would probably, like, if that movie actually comes out, I would probably go see it just to actually visually understand some of the parts that kind of went over my head, because it was real sciencey. But Project Hail Mary, Andy Weir. Okay, next, let's get into some Kennedy Ryan. So I read 3 Kennedy Ryan books. So first, we'll start with the Skyland series. I read Before I Let Go and This Could Be Us. So Before I Let Go, that was such a good book to me. Like, there were times where I was wondering, like, I feel like this is going to happen. It's a great story about coming back together, you know, something falling apart and then coming back together. And it was well written. I do think Kennedy Ryan is an amazing author. And I love how they kind of had like their friends around them to hold them up and also hold them accountable. It was beautiful. Like, that's what made me so intrigued about reading the rest of the Skyland series. So it's exciting to see how these 3 women, they meet as adults. They become really good friends, almost like sisters. It's just beautiful, because one thing about it, it's difficult making good quality friends as an adult. So yeah, I love to see stories like that. But, you know, I loved seeing the Black love and how they, yeah, I feel like I just gave it away. But Before I Let Go, really good book, which segues into part 2, which is This Could Be Us. So Before I Let Go had, what was their names? Josiah and, what was the other? Josiah and Yasmin. And then This Could Be Us, they were friends with another couple, which is Edward and Soledad. And their relation, I felt like it kind of gave you crumbs to what you could anticipate for Soledad and Edward's story. But I think overall, I did like This Could Be Us, but this is where I started to realize Kennedy Ryan can give you a slow burn, okay? She can give you a slow burn where it's like, the book can be, how long is this book, honestly? This Could Be Us is over 400 pages. And I feel like a third of that could have been chopped off. Like, we could have gotten to the point much sooner than we did. We see the foreshadowing, we see where this is going. Let's get there. And even if we got there sooner, if we didn't even cut off 100 pages, we could have used that extra 100 pages once we finally got to where we all saw what was going to happen. We could have gotten there sooner. And then instead of at the end having this quick 2-page 1 year later, I feel like there could have been an opportunity to provide more context into this new relationship, how it grows, how they merge their lives together. I think there was an opportunity missed there for us to kind of get more context into that. I think it would have been nice to see, how we come together. It would have been cool. And yeah, we didn't get that. So that is one letdown of This Could Be Us. But overall, still a good book. I liked Before I Let Go better, but This Could Be Us, a slow burn. We get there, we know what's going to happen. I just wish we would have gotten more context of their lives coming together. But there is supposed to be part 3 of the Skyland series called Can't Get Enough, which is supposed to be Hendrix's story, and that's coming out sometime this spring or summer. So I'm excited for that. So yeah. Okay, there was another Kennedy Ryan, Real. So this is the Hollywood Renaissance series. So Real is about, what's her name? Cannon and Neva. Again, another great love story of people coming together. A slow burn. Like, girl, Kennedy. Not Kennedy. Yeah, Kennedy. Girl, get to the point. Okay. I don't mind if it's a slow burn and it's under 300 pages, but when we're over 300, approaching 400 pages, and you're just like dangling me along for what we know is the inevitable, it starts to annoy me. Like, I like Kennedy Ryan's writing style. I just don't appreciate that slow burn. Like, get to the point. I have a short attention span. So I don't want to start struggling and losing sight of, or losing interest in the book because I feel like I know what's going to happen and we just haven't gotten there yet. And there's all these other chapters and all this other fluff added. But I still have to say, I did like Rio. I think the next part of the series, it seems like there's foreshadowing for another couple, kind of not couple, that we saw in there. I didn't actually look up the plots or synopsis for the rest of the Hollywood Renaissance series, so I don't know that for sure. But that's why I haven't come back to it, because I'm like, this was a slow burn, so I don't know what the others would be like with Kennedy Ryan. So she has quite a few books I am interested in reading. I am just a little apprehensive now because I just feel like that slow burn gonna piss me off. Like, that slow burn really gonna piss me off. But so let's say, again, I do like Kennedy Ryan. I don't want that to be misconstrued with I don't like her. I don't enjoy her writing style. I don't like the slow burn though. Okay, I have a short attention span, and we gotta get to it. Okay. Next, Sis Don't Settle by Faith Jenkins. So Sis Don't Settle: How to Stay Smart in Matters of the Heart. So what inspired this book is, you know how you're on Instagram, you watch a reel and then you just keep scrolling up, you know, seeing whatever's next. Someone had recited the poem that she has in the beginning. I think she wrote it to herself. That is in the beginning of the book, and it really intrigued me. So for that reason, I decided that I want to get the book. I don't want to be flagged or anything for like copyright purposes, so I won't recite the poem, but it's in the beginning of the book. So if you ever come across the book like a hardcover and like Barnes and Noble, just read the poem in there. I thought it was a beautiful like note to self, so that's what inspired the book. I don't feel like there was really anything in there new per se, but still things that sometimes as women we could turn a blind eye to, or we could, how do I say this? So you know how you're meeting new people or like dating or whatever, and sometimes you believe that there's more to it than what there really is. And so sometimes like that's something that more so you're responsible for instead of the other person, or even just not understanding where you stand with people, and really not just in significant other relationships, but just relationships with people in general. So it was a pretty decent read. Like, wasn't a slow burn. It didn't take me too long to get through it. It took me a couple weeks, but yeah, not a bad book. So I would definitely recommend it. Next, let's get into El Kaysen, or Kaysan. I don't know how to pronounce it correctly. So I read The Beauty of the Street Love, A Texas Tale. So I think it's 3 parts. I read the first 2. Y'all, it's like reading a Tubi movie. I'm reading this and I'm like, this sounds very outlandish. It just feels like a Tubi movie on Kindle Unlimited. So it's a series, again, like I said, and it's a family in the life, okay, about that life. And the parents are more so middle-aged, and then the kids are like in the 20s, and I think the youngest two are still they might be late teens, either late teens or early 20s. But there's 5 kids, 4 boys and a girl, and the girl is a twin to one of the boys, and they kind of all have their line of business that they're trying to take on or over. And it's real outlandish, okay? I saw this book being posted in Black Girls Read Too on Facebook, and it fell under the category when someone's saying they're looking for a book with a lot of, can I say this word on YouTube? They use the word smut, but it's code for a lot of intimate scenes. That sounds appropriate to say. But it's a lot of that in these books with this Texas Tales series. So if that's something that you don't want to read a bunch of, then probably wouldn't recommend the series to you. But if you don't mind it, go ahead. To me, these are quick, easy reads. It reminds me of when I was reading all of these urban fiction books in high school. So yeah, I feel like if you pick one of these up, especially on Kindle Unlimited, I can run through a book through the weekend. So that's pretty much how I got through these. I think I read the first 2 over the series of one weekend. They're not bad books. It's giving real Tubi vibes. I'm like, this, yes, yeah, I got a lot going on, but I'm not mad at it. It's a quick, easy read, especially if I read like a Kennedy Ryan book or like another thriller. It's a great way to kind of cleanse my palate with something else real quick before I get into another psychological thriller. So yes, The Beauty of the Street Love. Now part 2 leaves off with a cliffhanger. I just haven't gotten into part 3 yet. I want to, but at the same time, I keep like, this is just, it's Tubi. That's why I'm struggling to get back to part 3. I'm like, I want to see what happens, but at the same time, I'm like, it's still Tubi. I feel like I'd rather watch this as a Tubi movie. Well, because it's a lot. It's a lot of naked scenes. So maybe, I don't know. I still have to really say nothing, but if you don't mind a lot of X-rated scenes, then go ahead, read A Texas Tale from L. Kaysen. So yeah, for me, it's like palate cleansers between psychological thrillers for me. So that's where I start throwing in these urban fiction books. Is palate cleanser a right word? Because I don't want to diminish these books either, because I can run right through them. Like, I feel like because there's so much going on in them, it's like you can't help but stay involved. Next one though is from Jade Jones, When the Gangsta Wants You. This one is about Nova, Sensation, and Master. And finding out the relationship between Master and Sensation is quite interesting. Again, it's like another Tubi story, but I'm not too mad at it. But yeah, a girl who sets men up. I think that's the nicest way I can put it. It's real dangerous though, but listen, if you don't mind some urban fiction with some of them scenes, then go ahead. Overall, I don't mind these books of this content, like from Jade Jones and L. Kaysen. it's just, it'd be a lot going on in them. Okay, that's just what I'm gonna say. It'd be a whole lot going on. Okay. All right, so next up, Rhythms Blues from Kimberly Brown. So this is about Rhythm, Channing, and what is her boyfriend, Raheem. Yeah, this is actually a really good book. There's some scenes in there, but this one has a little more quality to it. So while it still has potential to be a Tubi movie, this one, I like this one better. There's more into the plot, if that makes sense. Like, it's a little more cohesive. It makes sense more. It's not outlandish. It's not something that you couldn't imagine ever happening. So I really did enjoy this book. It's about a girl who, I guess, reunites or reconnects with the man that she knew as a teenager. He's famous. She moves across the country with things don't always work out how you would hope. And then, you know, it's a good story though. This one I did really like this one. So it makes me very interested in reading more books by Kimberly Brown, because this book was really, really good. It does have a few messy scenes, but what good book doesn't, okay? Last two authors. I'm gonna start with Big Frida. Big Frida. Frida McFadden. So first I read The Boyfriend, which, y'all, this book, okay, there was First Light Wins, but this book solidified the fact that I love a good psychological thriller. So there's Sydney, and then there's, what is his name? Sydney and the doctor, right? This book takes you on so many twists and turns. There's some unaliving, so that's very unfortunate. There's some serious mind effing going on. There are some twist dips where it's like, I think I got this figured out. When I start connecting the dots, I'm like, I know who it is. I know exactly who's responsible. And then when we get to who's responsible, it ain't that. This was a really, really good book. I highly recommend The Boyfriend from Frida McFadden. Big Frida. Really good, really, really good book. Setting is New York City, which I think New York City is pretty much the setting for all of these books that she makes. New York City area, at least. And if you love a good plot twist, a good one where just when you think you got it all figured out, you're all wrong, and you gotta go back to the drawing board and reconnect the dots. Like, a really good book. I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. Like, I was not expecting that. So, and then towards the end, kind of, I don't know if it's Bonnie and Clyde or Joker and Harley Quinn kind of vibe going on, but if you read it, you will understand what I mean. So definitely enjoyed The Boyfriend. So then next from Frida, I have the Housemaid series that I'm currently working on. So I have read 2 of the 4. I'm currently reading book 3. But first one is The Housemaid. And Millie's heart really does genuinely seem to always be in the right place. And it just seems like that gets taken advantage of. And that's the best way I can put it. For both 1 and 2. Millie's heart genuinely seems to be in the right place. And yeah. Now, during book 1, she did seem to become like a martyr of some sort, or whatever. Is martyr the right word? But her heart is genuinely in the right place, and she wants to be helpful, and she wants to do the right thing. And yeah, there are some sensitive scenes in here as well, as far as abuse, torture. There is some content in here in regards to that, so keep that in mind. Is there unaliving in here? I think there's unaliving in here as well. So again, keep that in mind, but it is definitely a book that will keep you on your toes for sure. Like this, the way it ended, I was like, I'm not reading any more of this stuff. I actually didn't want to read part 2 because of the way the first one ended. I'm like, this too much. This is entirely too much. Like, you okay, Frida? Like, do you need to go talk to that lady? Like, cause something, yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot. That's why I read a lot of those urban fiction books to cleanse out the Housemaid. I'm like, I need to cleanse this out of my brain, cause it was a lot going on in that book. Like, I know I said there's a lot going on in urban fiction, like whatever, but it's mentally mind effing, okay, and the Housemaid. So then we segue into the Housemaid's Secret, which is part 2. Again, like, it seemed like Millie, while her heart does genuinely seem to be in the right place, sometimes she is in the wrong place, okay? And she gets taken advantage of a little bit, and I hate that for her. But yeah, there's some unaliving in part 2 as well. There's some gore or whatever. Again, takes you on a journey. I felt like this one wasn't as mentally intense as the first one. Still intense, but not as much as where I was like, I need another break, even though I did take one. But yeah, again, Frida, is you okay? Good. I probably should have did Frida last so I could talk about part 3, but I'll start with part 3. I'm currently reading, it's called The Housemaid is Watching. So that's part 3 that I'm reading. Oh, something just dawned on me from what I've read so far. What I will say, I started reading this book during the end of December, and I just knew I would finish it before January got here. But I haven't even hit page 100 yet. It's kind of starting out to be very slow to me, but I don't know. I feel like I'm approaching the point where it's about to take off. I'm hoping, because if not, if I get to like page 150, 175 and I'm still not like feeling it, I might not finish part 3. So we'll see. So TBD on part 3. So the last author for the books I've read is Millie Belizaire, and I read 4 books from her last year. And the first one I read is Fast. And so this is about Sean and Caprice. Again, sensitive subjects in this book regarding SA, especially involving children. So keep that in mind if you are sensitive to that type of material. Yeah, but this is such a well written, beautiful story. I love seeing how Caprice ultimately was able to get through a difficult time in her life, and how people were placed in her life, divine intervention, to really catapult her. Like, she ended up thriving so well. She did still have some of those emotional scars, I'm not gonna lie, but the fact that she was able to thrive with the help of, some very generous, amazing people along the way. Beautiful. And I love the way that the story ended. And it's just, that introduced me to Millie Belizaire. I don't know how many books Millie Belizaire has, but I need to read all of them. I need to read all of them. If I can find them, I need to read them. But such a beautiful story of someone who was broken and trying to live her life, and then a coming back together. Beautiful. Again, sensitive subject matter, but I highly recommend the book. And another thing I love about this book is that Caprice took her pain and used it to pay it forward. So if you've read the book, you'll know what I mean. If you haven't read the book, it will make sense after reading it. And such an amazing story. And there is some crossover from one of Caprice, her best friend in this book. She is a character in the next series I'm going to speak on. So there is a 3-part series that she has. So it's the Collide series. First one is When Worlds Collide, When Hearts Collide, and When Souls Collide. So part 1 is, the setting here is Miami. There's a set of twin girls who are fresh in college, and they kind of grew up in an affluent, is it pronounced affluent or affluent? Affluent area. And college party, again, sensitive topic regarding essay in the beginning, with her being at a college party and someone slipping something in her drink and then trying. Okay, now they didn't succeed, like that was stopped, but still it was leading up to that. So that's why I'm saying that there is some sensitive content in there, and it just turns into this, not the aggressor, but the person that saved her. It turned into this forbidden love story. Like, it's like a modern day Romeo and Juliet, where one person, their fathers are against each other legally. Like, one is the prosecutor or one is the defendant. Okay. And there's a lot of twists and turns, but it's such a good story, and they lead into each other. So that's kind of book one without giving too much away, where it's Lauren and Kane. They're kind of coming together, okay? Kane's a little hardened because he's seen a lot and has done a lot. So he's already kind of embedded into the life a little, while still going to college, which is interesting. Part 2 is basically because part 1 leaves off at a cliffhanger, which segues into part 2, where Kane kind of has to make a decision. Do you protect your father? Do you protect your family? Or do you protect the woman that you fell in love with? So it's a lot going on there. There's definitely some unaliving and potential unaliving happening in here, but still such a good read. Like, there's parts where you're like full of emotion. You're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. Or, it's a lot going through the motions with them, but such a story, such a beautiful story where you see that two people genuinely fall in love with each other and try their best to protect each other. And then yeah, the way it ends in part 2 is kind of sad, but it sets the stage for part 3, which is when souls collide. So there was a coming apart at the end of part 2, and part 3, Lauren had been through a lot with the end of part 2, and she kind of became outcasted by her family, and it was really hard to read, hard to visualize, and it makes sense more so towards the end once all the dots get connected, but still very hard to come to terms with. But it was still, this is such a good series. Like, I don't want to talk too much about it because I feel like I'm going to give it all away. I will say an amazing series to read. As far as I know, they're still on Kindle Unlimited reading this series from Millie Belizaire. When worlds collide, when hearts collide, when souls collide. You have to read them in order so that it makes sense. But Kane's sister, Sanaa, is the crossover character from Fast. So she's not a main character in this series, but she is a character in this series nonetheless. But yes, beautiful, beautiful story, and I loved following it. And one last book I will mention is From Scratch by Tembi Locke. And that book, I don't want to officially mark it as a do not finish because I don't know. I'm struggling to get into it though. I wonder if maybe I watch the series on Netflix and then come back to the book to see if that will spark some interest to try and get through the book. But I'm just having a hard time getting into it and seeing it through. I think I'm on like I don't know if I've hit page 100 or not. Actually, I have the hardcover book somewhere. Let me find out. So I have this here. I'm actually between page 74 and 75. So that's pretty tragic. And there are almost 300 pages in this book. A little over 300. So yeah, I'm having a really hard time getting into it. It's not very interesting to me, but again, maybe if I watch it on Netflix, it'll spark something that'll make me want to read it. But if not, then I'll just mark it as do not finish. But I can't even really get into what it's about because I kind of forgot a little. Like, I keep picking it up and putting it down. Another thing I will say is I think like maybe 6 or 7 of the books I've mentioned in this video, I did start reading like hard copies of them. But then once September, October, maybe October, I realized I feel like I'm back into the flow of reading enough to do Kindle. So I signed up for Kindle Unlimited, so that's how I'm getting through a bunch of the books now. So most likely if it's a book that I can't get on Kindle Unlimited, I probably won't. Unless it's for book clubs. I did purchase Project Hail Mary to read on Kindle. But for the most part, I'm looking for books I can get through Kindle Unlimited. And I said I wouldn't purchase a Kindle, but I think I will. Like, I still want one because I do use my phone. Like, when I'm at work, I'll use my phone at my desk and I'll use my iPad, but this is pretty large, so it's hard. Like, if I want to lay down and holding it up, it gets heavy. So yeah, I think I'm gonna get a Kindle, and I saw they released one in a green color, so I might need to have it. That means nothing right now, but I say all that to say those are the books I read for 2024. Again, current read is The Housemaid is Watching, which is part 3 of the Housemaid series. We're struggling. We don't know if we're going to get through that or not. TBD, but I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is my first book review. I don't really know what I'm doing. I did not do due diligence again to watch any, but again, we're gonna see how this works. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Feel free to suggest some books for me in the comments, because I am definitely open to a plethora of genres. I don't, have a preferred genre. I'm interested if it's a good plot, a good storyline, I want to read. So yeah. Don't forget again to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will catch you in the next one.